Is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you.
Hey, welcome to WBGR Sports Network and the Tom LeBomb Sports Talk Show. And this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If you don't think it's a great day, just try missing one. And we, L-O-V-E, love sports. On the Tom LeBomb Show, I'm your host, Tommy Wood, and we got another fantastic show for you today. Hey, it's April 1st, and that's not April Fool's. It is actually April 1st. Listen, just want to start off by wishing everybody had a very nice Happy Resurrection Day yesterday. Jesus is always the reason for the season. Okay, it's not actually Easter. Thanks for that, Bo. I appreciate it. We got another, like I said, we got another fantastic show for you. We just want to start off by thanking God for what He's doing for all of us in the new year. Our theme for 2024 is the year of fixed purpose. Hey, no trivia today, but I do actually have a poll question for you guys. If you guys want to go ahead and bring up the poll question, the poll picture. Our poll question today is, what is Scottie Pippen doing? You know, I just want to get you guys' take on that. What is Scottie Pippen doing? You guys know the show is live, so you can call in. The number here is 301-429-9247. Again, that's 301-429-9247 if you want to jot in. So that's our poll question for today. What is Scottie Pippen doing? What's going on, man? This guy just... Man, you know, I know if you guys saw The Last Dance, you know, The Last Dance didn't paint him in a very, very nice picture. But, you know, it's always the person who's telling the story, and Michael Jordan is telling the story. And I really don't think Michael Jordan was trying to dog Scottie Pippen as much as just actually telling what happened. But there's a whole lot going on behind that. So if you guys out there, you guys want to jump in here and just let me know what's going on with Scottie Pippen, because it's like he has real, true hate for MJ now. And, you know, they say, you know, I know one of the things that Troy always tells me is that MJ wouldn't have won none of those titles without Scottie Pippen, and he didn't win without Scottie. Well, let me ask you this. How many titles did Scottie Pippen win after Michael Jordan left? How many? Duh. Okay, now I do know that when he came back, they won another 3 in a row. So, you know, they needed each other, okay? It's that simple. But the question for the poll is, what is Scottie Pippen doing now? What's going on? I mean, you know, I just want to know if somebody out there can help me. You know, what is Scottie Pippen doing now, man? So, that's our poll question. Hey, gang, listen, Tom LeBomb wants to welcome a new sponsor. You can come back to me, a new sponsor for the Tom LeBomb Show, and that would be MB Automotive at 11874 Coakley Circle in Rockville, Maryland, 20852. You can also, they can be reached at info@mbautoinc.com. Hey, see Amal and Patrick, they'll take great care of you. They'll take great care of your car. Listen, Tom LeBomb, I've been taking all of my cars there for over 20 years, and these guys are phenomenal. I mean, Troy just takes his car over there, they just fix it. Man, I want to be Troy. You know what I'm saying? And just take my car over and somebody will fix it and I don't pay for it. Yeah, I want to be Troy. But but yeah, we want to welcome a new sponsor, MB Automotive, to the Tom LeBomb Show. I've been doing business, like I said, with these guys for over 20 years, and they are phenomenal. They specialize in luxury cars, Mercedes, BMWs, things like that. But they can handle everything, and the work is excellent, and the pricing is even better. For those of you out there who have Mercedes, and you take your car to the dealership because you got to get that A and that B service done, and then they tell you what it costs, you be like, whoa! And I remember taking Lauren's car over for the first time we did the A and B service, and I saw the price, and I was like, what didn't you do? And it was like, we did everything. And they read down the list, because I knew what we had been paying at the Mercedes-Benz dealership, and wow, it was eye-opening. So we want to welcome MB Automotive to the Tom LeBomb Show. Hey gang, what we watching tonight? Oh man, that's easy, man. It's the game of the year. LSU versus Iowa at 7:15 p.m. And right after that, it's going to be USC versus UConn at 9:15 p.m. Hey, this LSU Iowa game possibly could be the biggest women's game in the history of women's basketball. It's that big. It's that big. And the USC UConn is going to be excellent. We got the top dogs in here, man. We got Reese, we got Caitlin, we got Juju, we got Paige Buckets Becker. It's good. Hey Stevie, how you doing, man? Thanks for hanging in there with me. But yeah, man, that's what we're watching tonight. LSU versus Iowa at 7:15 p.m. This game is so good that Tom DeBomb is delaying his trip so he can get home to watch this game. And following that, like I said, it's going to be USC versus UConn. So that's what we're watching tonight. Hey man, look, let's get right into it, man. We talking March Madness. Corey, let's go right to the men's March Madness. Alrighty, and we'll start off in the East region where UConn versus the Fighting Illini from Illinois. You know, Tom DeBomb, an Illinois fan. You know, so we grew up, so we rooted for Illinois. And man, all I can say is wow, man. This game blew me away, man. Illinois absolutely had the talent to deal with UConn. But I thought they were badly outcoached in this game. I had one of my friends said, well, the coach didn't miss any 3-pointers and he didn't miss all those free throws, but it was a really, really bad scheme. It was a really, really bad scheme. I thought the Illini, number one, I thought they were scared. They really, really looked they were scared. And number two, they were just fundamentally flawed. And I'm not even talking about the horrendous free throw shooting. But, if you watch the game, even though they were down by, 6 or 7 in the first half, they actually outplayed Connecticut in the first half. But then the second half happened. And the second half happened, and UConn ran off 30 points in a row to 0 for the Illini. I've been watching basketball for over 50 years, and I ain't never seen that before. Man. You can throw it up and get lucky and get one in, man. A 30-0 run, just had never seen that before, man. And don't know if I'll ever see that again, man. But it was like I said, they were fundamentally unsound, and I really thought it was bad coaching. The Illini star, he's a slasher. I kind of thought, coming into the tournament, he was the leading scorer, and I kind of felt like, this guy games might transition to the next level. But after watching him against UConn, I saw him as pretty much a slasher. He didn't have the explosive hops like I thought he did, because it seems like Illinois' strategy was to drive the ball into the 7-footer. And man, he just kept putting it back in their face, man. And here's the thing. If you're going to keep going to the hoop, you get your first shot blocked. You get your second shot blocked. Okay, I'm okay with that. But after go in there, it has to be to throw it down. You have to slam that ball when you go in there. But why not just fundamentally pull up like Ted Daniels drilled into us at Assumption, stop at the free throw line, extend it, or on the elbow, jump stop, pull up the short jumper, or dish it. It was just unbelievable. I just hadn't seen anything like it. The second half, after being like one of the top offensive teams all year long, I felt like Illinois. It was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing, for the second half. And at one point in the game, I was like, hey, why don't y'all just stop this game, because we don't want anybody from UConn to get hurt going on to the next level. But they embarrassed the Fighting Illini. They were embarrassed, and I thought it was a poor coaching job. I think they exposed a lot of their weaknesses. And here's the thing, man. UConn is that good. They really are that good. But like I was saying, Illinois had the athletes to play with these guys, but UConn is so deep. They're so deep, man. And at some point, Illinois, I think they got a little tired. They tried to go with Hawkins on Klingon, the big boy, but Doncic, you got to stick with 42. He's got to stay in there until he fouls out, because he was the only person who could even slow Klingon down. And when Clingan was out of the game, Illinois clearly outplayed UConn. But when he came back in, but even Clingan's replacement, UConn dominated Illini in the post. And one of the reasons that surprised me was that, Illinois being in the Big Ten, they played Purdue twice against Zach Edey, and Zach Edey is still the best big man in college basketball. And, the Illini beat Purdue one of those games. So it's not like they hadn't seen a big 7-footer like that before. But I think Clingan was much more aggressive than Edey, and a better defensive, not a better offensive player than Zach Edey, but clearly he's a better defensive player. And man, he just kept putting it back in their face, and they just kept running it in there. They go to the basket, tentative, even when Clingan didn't go up, the Illini players would go up tentatively and miss the layup because they thought he was coming to block their shot. For all you Lincoln Tiger fans out there, it almost reminded me of Uwe Blab. You Lincoln Tigers remember Uwe Blab? Nick, Spank, I know you remember Uwe Blab. But that's what that game kind of reminded me of, it's a combination of UConn being that good. Remember I told you that this tournament for the first time was going to be pretty close to chalk. And everybody and their mama is picking UConn to win it. I mean, unanimously, all the experts have picked UConn, and that's so. UConn has only been down for 28 seconds in this whole tournament, and they're averaging over double digits, 13 or 14 points win, most of them close to 30 in every single game. So one of the questions that have been asked is, can anybody even give UConn a game? Forget about beating them. Can anybody even give UConn a game? It's been rumored that UConn could probably make it into the play-in game in the NBA. So that's how strong this UConn team is. Hey, let's move on to the West region. The West region was Alabama versus Clemson. And this game was very, very entertaining. It's great when you don't necessarily have a rooting interest and you can just watch the game for fun. And I was actually kind of rooting for Clemson in this game because I love the Clemson's big man, Chef. And number 4, that's probably the best two big man tandem I've seen playing in a long time. The way they played off each other and just kind of knew each other. And it was a very, very competitive game. But let me tell you something, man. Alabama can shoot the 3. They do a good job of making you play their game. So the combination of being able to shoot the 3 and then forcing you to play their game is why Alabama got by, and which will help them in the next round. I don't believe they're going to win, but I think it gives them something to offer that UConn hasn't seen yet. But it was a very, very competitive game. It went down to the wire. It could have went either way, matter of shots dropping here and there. But I was, like I said, I didn't have a vested interest in either one of these games, like I said, other than to see a good game. But I just really, really liked Clemson. And I like their team. I like the way they played together. But hey, Alabama proved to be the better team, and they got the W. So they got the W in the West region. Alabama won 89-82. I forgot to mention that UConn beat Illinois 77-52. That's kind of, let's get away from that. So Alabama prevails over Clemson 89-82, and they move on to the Final Four. So the first matchup, which we'll get to in a second, and the Final Four is going to be UConn versus Alabama. We'll get to that. But let's get to the South region of the Elite Eight. In the South region, we had Dr. Lauren's Duke Blue Devils versus America's Sweethearts, NC State. Duke versus NC State. And Tom LeBon was all over this one. Tom LeBon told you guys that NC State was going to take out Duke. I told you guys that Duke was going to beat the number 1. But, man, let me tell you, man, that DJ Burns, man, that dude is a load, man. And here's the thing. Let me tell you, if you've never, because you look at him, you go, look at this big kid. He's kind of awkward. He's not awkward. He's kind of big. He's a little slow. But I'm going to tell you something, man. Unless you've actually played basketball, when a guy that size leans on you, okay, you may be able to jump better than him. You may be more athletic than him. But this was one of the reasons that Shaq was so unstoppable, man. When that 300 pounds leans on you, by the time the third quarter rolls around, your legs are dead. You are dead. I mean, you're just tired from him just leaning on you. And like I said, he's got good hands. He's got good footwork. He's got good post moves. And man, he was the difference in this game, man. He put it on Duke, and you know, they played. You know, Duke beat them early in the season, and then matter of fact, they beat them twice in the season. But then North Carolina beat Duke in the ACC tournament, and it was a question whether the NC State, if NC State don't win the ACC tournament, they don't even make the big dance. But man, I'm telling you, man, it's getting hot in all sports. It's getting hot at the right time, and North Carolina State is hot. This is the kind of hot that the last time that the North Carolina State won the national championship with Jim Valvano, I believe it was back in 83, 86, something like that. They went on this same type of run, and that same team, if you remember back then, all that NC State team was beat Ralph Sampson, Virginia team, which had been rated #1 all year. A North Carolina Michael Jordan team, which has been ranked #1, #2 all year, and they went through and won the ACC tournament, and then they just got in the tournament and became the Cardiac Kids, and that's what this North Carolina State team looks like. They're moving along, man, and DJ Burns is leading them all the way, man. He has such a great personality. And it's so great to see a young man like this, and people don't see him just as a big athlete. They see him as, they see his personality. His personality comes through on the court. He's always smiling. He's always having fun, and he's a joy to work. And I think J.J. Williams coined him America's big man. He's America's new big man, and everybody seems to be in love with him. As a matter of fact, I just saw something recently where they're saying that the NFL is showing interest in DJ Burns to play in the NFL. Well, we'll know about all of that, but man, he's got great moves, he's got great hands, and poured in 29 points against Dr. Lauren's Duke Blue Devils. So, you know, I have to kind of watch. I kind of had to watch that game quietly, you know, because I didn't want to upset Dr. Lauren since her Duke Blue Devil, because, you know, her and Cindy, they have a saying, at Duke we know basketball. That's what they always tell me. We know basketball at Duke. Well, I'm here to tell you, they know basketball at NC State as well. So North Carolina prevailed over Duke, and it was an exciting game. It was a good game, and then and it was amazing because after halftime, this game was back neck and neck. But after halftime, North Carolina State just took control and they shut them down. And Duke was struggling for baskets, and North Carolina State was getting easy baskets. It's kind of like when you watch a sporting competition, whether it's basketball or football. It's like one team is getting it done easy, and the other team is kind of struggling to get it done. And that's what this game was in the second half. And if you just looked at it, he's like, okay, well, Duke is scoring, but they're really working hard. And NC State will give these easy backdoor cuts to the basket. And so even when Duke would come down and hit a three, NC State would come back with a backdoor layup, and, you know, say, okay, well, you got to make a three, and I'm shooting a layup. Come on, man, we know who's going to win this game, and that's what happened. So congratulations to the North Carolina State Wolfpack as they move on to the Final Four, as they get past Dr. Lauren Duke Blue Devils. Let's move on to the Midwest. The Midwest is the Purdue Boilermakers versus Tennessee. A 1 versus a 2. That's what I mean when I say this tournament was chalk. 1 versus 2. Now, what's interesting about Purdue all year long, if you guys remember a few years back, the University of Virginia came into the tournament ranked #1, and they were the first team in the history of the NCAA tournament for a #1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. They lost to the UMB, University of Maryland, Baltimore. And I remember watching that game, and I remember being very critical of Virginia. How they just quit in the game. I specifically remember it. And they're the first #1 seed to ever lose to a number 16 seed in the tournament. And the very next year, that same Virginia team came back and won the national title the very next year. That had never been done, okay? So last year, Purdue also had a #1 ranking, and they became the second team in the history of the NCAA to lose to a number 16 seed. So they got eliminated in the first round last year. So this Purdue, and you know, they said Purdue can't win. They've got Zach Edey, but their guards can't shoot. Their guards can't make shots. So this Purdue team all year long have been playing with a chip on their shoulder. And yesterday, Zach Edey put this team on his back. He poured in 40 points, double digits rebounds. He was not going to let this team lose. And, you know, I had a conversation over last week with Chuck. And Chuck doesn't think that Zach Edey's going to be, he's not going to transition to be an NBA player. Hey, he may not be a great NBA player, but I absolutely think that Zach Edey's game will translate to the NBA, and I think he'll be in the NBA. He won't be. I don't think he'll be a great NBA player, but I definitely think he'll be an NBA player. Yes, his arguments, he's kind of slow. The game is positionless now. So now, if your 7-footer doesn't shoot 3-pointers, they're going to take Zach Edey out on the top of the key and wear him out. That's his thing, and that may happen. But if he just plays defense and rebounds, there's going to be a place for him in the NBA. And you can't teach speed. And you can't teach size. And hey, man, it's not that many people in the world that's 7'4" and can actually play basketball. And he's got very, very good skills for a big man around the basket. His moves around the baskets are very, very good. And this is very, very interesting. He's a great testament because Zach Edey talked about how at 7'4", a lot of teams passed on him. Nobody really wanted to recruit him. A lot of teams passed on him. And all he's done is been the nation's top player for the last 2 years in a row. And nobody wanted this guy. Hey, man, it happens out there, man. Don't let nobody tell you what you can't do or what you can't be. So congratulations to Zach Edey and the Purdue Boilermakers as they they beat Tennessee 72-66 in the Midwest region. So that sets up the Final Four for the men's. Saturday, April 6th is going to be the men's Final Four. And like I said, in the first matchup, it's going to be UConn versus Alabama. Let's talk about that first real quick. I personally just don't see anybody beating UConn like all the experts. I'm in agreement with the experts. That's just a really, really good basketball team that UConn has. But here's the thing about basketball. It's kind of like fights, how it says styles dictate fights. Sometimes, because of the style that you have, it makes you makes a team that's not probably better than you, where you can exploit their weaknesses because of your style. And what Alabama does that's going to help them against UConn is Alabama, they have great 3-pointers, which always helps. But Alabama, we're talking about the men now, guys. We're talking about the men. Alabama does a good job of making you play their game. So if they can make UConn play their game and knock down threes, hey, they might can be in it, man. You can't play this game on paper. And as good as UConn looks, we can't just give them the national championship. UConn is still going to have to earn it. But their head coach, Dan Hurley, he's fanatical. And he has his kids playing fanatical. And I love what he says, is my team doesn't do well in close games. So we just decided we aren't going to play any close games. We're just going to blow everybody out. And that's fantastic. I love that. I love that idea. But if Alabama can get them in a close game, kind of reminds me of our football East St. Louis Flyers. For the most part during the season against the state of Illinois, they just dominate teams. They win by 30, they 40. But when they get downstate and get to the state championship and they finally run into a team that stands up against them and they get into that close game and they haven't played a close game all year long, sometimes they have problems and they lose that close game. And let's see if Alabama can pull that off with UConn, get UConn into a close game that they haven't had. I'm trying to figure out, how has UConn lost 3 games? I think they're 35-3 or something like that. How did they lose 3 games? That's what I want to know. So we'll see. Like I said, they have to play the game. You just can't give it to UConn. So I think Alabama, if they can do that, they can at least make a game of it. The second matchup is going to be Purdue versus NC State. Everybody likes the underdog. That's what this tournament is all about. Everybody loves and likes the underdog. And I'm just no different. I like NC State a lot. But I think Zach Edey, it's going to be interesting to see the matchup of Zach Edey versus DJ Burns. But I think Purdue gets past NC State. For NC State to even be in the Final Four, that's unbelievable. But I think that Purdue gets past NC State, and I think we're going to have a UConn-Purdue in the national game on Monday night. I think it's April 8th. And I think that's probably going to be the best game. And I think that's going to be the game I think that everybody really, really wanted to see. 2 number ones. You got Zach Edey, Player of the Year, going against Clingan, the big 7-footer from UConn. I think it'll be a good matchup. And that's what Tom DeBomb prediction is. Tom DeBomb is taking Purdue and UConn in the national championship game. So quite naturally, I got UConn over Alabama. I have Purdue over NC State. Hey, let's move on. Let's talk about the ladies now. Got to talk about the ladies, man. You know, Tom the Bomber's been telling you guys all year long that the ladies' college game has been more exciting than the men's college game. It really, really has. The women's game is really, really taking off. And I can tell you this for sure. Women's college basketball right now is more popular than the WNBA. You know, it's almost kind of like how women's tennis is more exciting than men's tennis, okay? So let's talk about the women's NCAA Sweet 16. In the first one, we had the Duke Blue Devils versus UConn, and Paige Buckets Becker led UConn past Duke 53-45. UConn over Duke. Now we can bring up the ladies' Sweet 16, guys. You guys got to get out of the mustard and ketchup. Okay, there we go. So, like I said, we got UConn defeated Duke 53-45. Paige Becker, who her coach says is the best player in the country. Not Caitlin Clark, not Juju Watkins. He says it's Paige Buckets. And you know, she's had 2 knee surgeries and she's missed almost 2 years of basketball, but she was ahead of Caitlin Clark before she went down with her injuries. And her coach says she's still the best player. She's tough. She's tough. But they defeated Duke 53-45. Our next game was the Colorado Buffaloes versus Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes. And the Iowa Hawkeyes had a much easier time than they did with West Virginia as they beat Colorado 89-68. You know, there's kind of been some whining going on. That's USC and Baylor. Let's get Iowa and Colorado. That's what we want. There's kind of been some whining that Iowa has been getting some home cooking. And, you know, I've watched the games, and yeah, I've seen a little bit of that. But this is a good basketball team. I've been saying all year that this Iowa team isn't as good as it was last year. But hey, man, they got Caitlin Clark, man. This is the most phenomenal scorer in women's basketball that we've ever seen. And what I really, really like about it, it's not just that she's a scorer. She's a top level passer, man. She leads the country in scoring. She leads the country in assists. And what I like when I watch her play, what I really like about her game is she realizes is that if I don't get my teammates involved, if I don't get my teammates scoring in double figures, then even though I may score 40 points, we might lose. But when she gets that contribution from her teammates, when she gets 15 from one and 12 from another and 20 for another, and then she pumps in her 30 like she's going to do automatically, that makes Iowa a very, very tough team. So they moved on past Colorado 89-68. Now, guys, let's go to USC and Baylor. Let's go to that now, Corey. USC versus Baylor. And this was a very, very close, tough game, competitive game. Juju Watkins and USC pulled it out 74-70 against the Baylor Bears. Like I said, it was a very, very competitive game. But hey, man, that's the great thing about basketball, just sports in general, man. You gotta have that go-to person who can just, at the end of the game, they can take it over. You know, they can say, "Give me the ball and you get out of my way." Or you know, if it's football, give me the ball, throw it to me. Basketball, give me the rock. Baseball, if you have a dominant pitcher, give me the ball and let me just get, because good pitching beats good hitting. And that's what Juju Watkins is for USC. Caitlin Clark is dynamic, but I personally think overall, the overall game, I love Juju's game, man. I think she's a lot stronger. I think she's better in the paint and going to the hole. I like the way that she can take contact and still make the shot. But like I said, so they got past Baylor, USC in a close game, 74-70. And then that leads us to our last game, which is the LSU Lady Tigers versus UCLA. And we're going to talk about this one for a minute. We're going to do some other things. LSU prevailed 78-69 in a very, very hard-fought, tough game, man. And man, there was a lot of hard feelings in this game. Some things said that shouldn't have been said, but LSU with the superior talent. Okay, that's the bottom line. They had superior talent, and their athleticism, I think, overwhelmed UCLA. The last elite game was Sweet 16 game was South Carolina versus Oregon State, and the number one South Carolina won 70-58 over Oregon State. And NC State beat Texas 76-66. So let me just say this. North Carolina has their men and women's program in the Final Four. Man, that hasn't happened since, I think UConn did it. It was the last team to do it, where their men and women were in the Final Four. So congratulations to North Carolina State that their men's basketball team and their women's basketball team have both made it to the Final Four. So the women's game is kind of a little bit behind the men. So we already know who two of the games for the Final Four is going to be. It's going to be South Carolina is going to take on North Carolina State in the Final Four on the women's bracket. But we still have Elite Eight games. So let's talk about that real quick. Like I said, so tonight at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, we have LSU versus Iowa. This is the game that everybody wants to see. This is the biggest game. It could be the biggest women's game ever. It really could. And Tyler Baum is not exaggerating. This could be the biggest game ever because all of the implications. As a matter of fact, I'm going to come back to LSU and Iowa, and then and let's real quick. Let's talk about USC versus UConn. And this is great too because now we're going to have Juju Watkins going against Paige Becker. So these are the four dogs, if I can just say that word, left for the Final Four. Angel Reese from LSU, Caitlin Clark from Iowa, Juju Watkins from USC, and Paige Becker from UConn. These are the four dogs. So we already know that NC State is going to take on South Carolina in the women's Final Four. But like I said, tonight we're going to find out who's going to be joining them. So like I said, Tyler Baum is actually delaying this trip because I'm going to be home at 7:15 p.m. to see LSU take on Iowa. Reese versus Caitlin Clark. So that's set for the women's Elite Eight going to the Final Four. So I'm going to kind of mix this in. Let's talk about the Washington Post released an article on Coach Kim Mulkey of LSU. Let's go to that. Let's talk about this, and I'm going to kind of wrap all. I'm going to work with me. I'm going to tell you how we're going to work all of this in. Okay, so the Washington Post on Saturday released an in-depth profile of LSU's women's basketball head coach Kim Mulkey. And the article kind of got blown out of proportion because before the article even came out, Kim Mulkey was very critical. She threatened the Washington Post that she was going to sue them if they published anything that was untrue, and she really kind of got the cart before the horse. But when the article came out, in which I read it, it basically just paints the coach, Coach Kim Mulkey, as a leader with single-minded determination whose behavior often leaves the basketball community and her own players divided. Anticipation of the article was very high. Like I said, after Mulkey a week ago threatened to sue the Post over what she claimed to be a hit piece. She said the newspaper had been working on her for more than 2 years to do this interview. The story doesn't contain the type of bombshell revelations that many were expecting following Mulkey's fiery tirade last Saturday's ahead of LSU's second-round game in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Instead, it paints a picture of a coach whose brash manner and tendency to hold grudges make her one of the most polarizing figures in college basketball history, and a life devoted to the pursuit of basketball excellence. You cannot argue with her record and her outcome. And all the talking heads have commented on this story, from Jamel Hill to Stephen A. Smith to Shannon Sharp to my heroes, Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon, ex-Washington Post reporters and hosts of the best sports talk show on TV, PTI. But the bottom line is, Kim Mulkey seems to be her own worst enemy. You know, I think this story almost would have slipped past with hardly anybody noticing, because people don't read the newspaper anymore. They really don't. If it's not on social media, people don't see it. And it would. So I think she made more of a fuss than what it really was. And the bottom line is, it basically, in a nutshell for the article, is she's a coach that's non-negotiable, one of those my way or the highway type of coaches, and had nothing to say. And one of the criticisms of her was that she had nothing to say at all about Brittany Griner, okay, which we're going to kind of talk about a little bit as well. But lo and behold, after this story seemed to be kind of flickering out, and after LSU defeated UCLA in the Sweet 16, the LA Times article was written. And in the article called the LSU Lady Tigers dirty debutantes. And it insinuates and basically calls them villains, while at the same time they were calling UCLA America's sweetheart. The article was so offensive that parts of it had to be retracted. So I had to go check this out. Now, Ben Boach, let's get this cracker up. And yes, I said it right. Let's get this cracker up. Ben Boach, the LA staff writer of the article, offended many readers. He offended so many readers. Get Ben Boach up so my people can see who this is, so they know who I'm talking about. The LA staff writer of the article offended so many readers that the original version of the article has been updated online because it didn't meet the LA Times editorial standards. Now let's stop right there for a second, because number one, you always have editors. Nobody writes a story and it just gets into the paper without it going through it. But it just doesn't go through one editor. It goes through 2, 3 editing before it even gets the actual editor who says, okay, this can go in the paper and it can't. And my point being is, after going through all of that pre-screening or previewing, they still put this article in the paper. So this tells me one thing. Not only should Ben Boach be fired, but the pre-editors and the editors, they all should be fired too. Because number one, if it gets in the paper and you saw it, okay, that means you agree with what he's saying. And these remarks are quite racist, and I'm going to go over them with you. And if you didn't read it, that means you didn't do your job of properly editing, and you should be fired for that also. So this is definitely, I think Ben Boach is going to be the fall guy, but not just him should lose his job, but the pre-editors and the editors, they should lose their job behind this as well. So let's get back to what Ben actually wrote, okay? Boach's description of LSU players as dirty debutante no longer appears in the updated version. Boach also accused the LSU Lady Tigers of being divisive and America's most polarizing team. And in a nutshell, in the article, because I did read the article, he basically broke it down to good versus evil, with UCLA being good and LSU being evil. Come on now, these are 18 to 21-year-old young student athletes, and you're calling them villains, you're calling them evil, and you're calling them dirty debutantes, and you have a job as a staff writer on a paper? The article also went on to say, it says that UCLA is Bel Air, which is in Westwood, which is 90% white. Now, this is not Tom the Bomb saying this. This is what it says in the article, that Bel Air, Westwood is 90% white, and versus Baton Rouge, the Bayou Barbies, which is 53% black. Now, in the article, he's talking about the Lady LSU Tigers being divisive, and to me, the article was divisive. I'm like, how could you actually write this, and how could your editors actually let this get in the papers? I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. We've seen this before with the Catholics versus the Presbyterians, the good versus evil, UCLA being good and LSU being evil. He also threw in a phrase, UCLA is like milk and cookies, and LSU is dirty debutantes. I'm like, how is this guy saying this and still has a job? I'm like, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's crazy, man. So if you guys get a chance to read this article, you should read it for yourself. But it'll be real interesting to see if Mr. Ben Boach has a job after this article goes on. Yeah, I know, man. That's just absolutely crazy. Can't believe this, right? So keeping with the ladies, let's talk about this real quick. The Big Three offers Caitlin Clark $5 million to come play in the Big Three League. Caitlin Clark could take her talents from the Big Ten to the Big Three, and that's Ice Cube's league, the Big Three. The Big Three is a basketball league. Let's bring up that Caitlin Clark in the cube. The Big Three basketball league has offered the Iowa Phenom $5 million to play in the 2024 season. The rap mogul, born O'Shea Jackson, posted on X, which I guess used to be Twitter, on Wednesday after the second round of the NCAA tournament to confirm the reported offer. This is Ice Cube talking. He says, we intend for the offer to remain private while Caitlin Clark plays for the championship. But I won't deny what's now already out there. The Big Three made a historic offer to Caitlin Clark. And he says, why wouldn't we? Caitlin is a generational athlete who can achieve tremendous success in the Big Three. The $5 million is guaranteed money and would be for only 8 games with the possibility of 2 possible playoff games, which means all she'd end up playing is 10 games. Caitlin Clark is expected to be the number 1 overall draft pick in the WNBA draft, which holds to the Indiana Fever next month. Now, Clark would also get revenue from sponsorship and merchandising, okay? And now here's the other thing. Now, Caitlin Clark, she still could play in the WNBA because she only ended up missing 2 games that the Big Three games would conflict with the Fever's schedule. So she'd only end up missing two games. Ice Cube makes some very, very good points. Ice Cube went on to say that the offer makes sense because the Big Three has broken boundaries for women. Hall of Famers Nancy Lieberman and Lisa Leslie are head coaches in the Big Three League. He said Caitlin Clark's offer is path-breaking because it continues to give women athletes choices and better alternatives than playing overseas in dismal and dubious foreign countries just to make ends meet. If you guys remember, Brittany Griner, who was wrongfully detained in Russia for 10 months after being arrested for a vape cartridge while playing in the Russian Premier League. Other WNBA stars like Sabrina Ionescu and Asia Wilson decided not to play overseas this offseason because of that. But with this offer, Caitlin Clark can make history and break down even more barriers for women athletes. The Big Three is a 3-on-3 basketball league founded by Ice Cube in 2017, and there are 12 teams that travel the country competing for an annual championship. The 2024 season tips off on June 15th at Oakland Arena and ends August 18th at TD Garden, which is home of the NBA Boston Celtics. Now here's one of the catches. Now, first of all, the NBA owns the WNBA, and the NBA is not really happy with the Big Three League because they just don't want competition. It almost kind of reminds you of the Live Tour and the PGA Tour. They just don't want the competition. So they've actually been giving Ice Cube and the Big Three a lot of problems. And Ice Cube, the Big Three, they actually had to go to court because monopolies aren't legal. So really, the NBA can't do this. But what the NBA tried to do was put pressure on some of the other NBA arenas, not allowing them to play their games there. But, they've negotiated around that. So the other thing that we want to talk about, they've offered Caitlin Clark $5 million guaranteed. On top of that, like I said, she's also going to be able to get sponsorships and merchandising. So she's going to make even more than $5 million. Now, I bring that point up because the highest paid player in the WNBA is Jackie Young of the Las Vegas Aces. Jackie Young is the highest paid player in the WNBA, and Jackie Young makes $252,000 per year. Nobody in the WNBA has a contract more than 2 years. So Jackie Young, in 2 years, she's going to make close to $500,000. Ice Cube is offering Caitlin Clark $5 million guaranteed for 10 games. For 10 games. And then on top of that, she can finish the season and then go join the WNBA. Now, if the WNBA tries to block Caitlin and put pressure on her by saying, well, if you go play in the Big Three, kind of like the PGA Tour and Live, if you go and play in the Big Three, you're not going to be able to come back to the WNBA. That's only going to hurt the WNBA because right now, Caitlin Clark is the biggest draw in all of women's sports right now, totally in basketball. And I mentioned to you earlier that the women's college game is bigger than the WNBA. So the WNBA needs Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark don't need the WNBA. And Ice Cube has just made it really, really easy for Caitlin Clark to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm just going to go play for the Big Three and make this cool $5 million plus. And if I want to, I'll come back and join the WNBA. And like I said, the highest paid salary is just $252,000, and you're going to pay me $5 million for 10 games. Somebody do the math. Coy, somebody do the math. $5 million for 10 games. How much is that per game? So what she's making in one game is what the highest paid player in the WNBA is making in 2 years. In 2 years. Man, this is very, very interesting. I'm going to tell you something. The WNBA better do everything in their power to get Caitlin Clark to the WNBA. They better kiss her butt. They better do whatever to get this because. And here's the other thing. There's no other way to say this. Caitlin Clark is a white female superstar. Okay, and I make a direct comparison. Caitlin Clark, a direct comparison to Larry Bird. If you guys remember when Larry Bird came into the league, people were like, "Man, he's really good for a white guy." No. He's not good for a white guy. He's good for a human. Okay, so don't come and tell me he's some of the guys on the Detroit Pistons were talking about he'd just be an average player if he was black. No. This is a case of reverse racism. It's really what's going on because Larry Bird was all that and a bag of chips, and so is Caitlin Clark. Okay, I had some friends that was telling me, I don't think she's all that hype. And I'm like, listen, I'm trying to tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. Caitlin Clark is all of that and a bag of chips. She's just like the same way Larry Bird was to the NBA. That's what Caitlin Clark is going to be to the WNBA. So they have no time, no chance of thinking about losing her. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. And once she transitions to the WNBA, if these other players in the WNBA, if they call themselves getting jealous and going to rough her up and do things and play dirty, that's going to be a huge mistake. Because let me give you another example. Caitlin Clark in the WNBA is like Tiger Woods on the PGA. When Tiger Woods is playing on the PGA Tour, people watch, they look in. When Tiger Woods is not playing, that people don't necessarily care that much about the PGA because Tiger Woods transcends the game. People that don't like golf watch golf when Tiger Woods is playing. It's going to be the same thing for Caitlin Clark. People that don't care about women's basketball, college or pros, they will watch because of Caitlin Clark. So she's kind of tied in with Tiger that she moves the needle. And money talks and everything else walks. So, like I said, they better do everything in their power to get Caitlin Clark into the WNBA. They better acquiesce to her. They better make this transition work because it would just be crazy. It would be crazy for Caitlin Clark to turn down this $5 million offer that Ice Cube and the Big Three is offering her. There's no downside to this. There's absolutely no downside to this other than other players in the WNBA being jealous. Now, one of the things that they've complained about is the conditions aren't good, the travel isn't good, the pay isn't good. Well, Caitlin Clark is the person that would, the same way that Tiger Woods and Arnold Palmer, for that matter, drove up the purses and the price tags for the pros, that's what Caitlin Clark will do for the WNBA. So, like I said, they better acquiesce to her and give her whatever she wants. If you're not going to let people rough her up, you're not going to let people follow her out because people are going to come to the games and the events to see Caitlin Clark. Hey, look, let's take a break and we'll be right back. And we're going to come back and we're going to be talking about my man Draymond Green. We're going to talk a little bit of NBA, but let's take a break and we'll be right back.
When it comes to cost and quality, you simply cannot do better than Window Nation. For about half the cost of national brands, you get equal if not better quality, saving you thousands of dollars. Right now, get two.
Sheltered by the Sea of Cortez, Danzante Bay is a pure and peaceful oasis, an uncrowded retreat where your options are as vast as your views. If you're seeking a vacation that defines luxury and the true relaxation, look no further than Villa del Palmar at the islands of Loreto. A splendor of true Mexican hospitality effortlessly blends with rich materials and insatiable comforts to bring guests the ideal home away from home experience. With its quiet beaches, scenic vistas, rich history, and an astounding surrounding natural habitat, you'll feel as though you've been swept off to paradise. Not to be outdone, Reese Jones has crafted TPC Danzante Bay, a brilliant, multi-themed 18-hole golf course that runs over and through valleys, arroyos, dunes, and foothills. From every angle, striking images of the islands of Loreto and the surrounding mountain range take your breath away, while the challenging yet rewarding Baja Golf Course beckons you to return for more. It is an honor and my pleasure to welcome you to the world's most beautiful sunset and so much more.
And we're back. You guys caught me napping. All righty. Hey, listen. Draymond Green's at it again. Now you guys know that Tom the Bomb is a Warriors fan, okay? And I like Draymond. You know, I'm a Warriors fan. But man, you talk about wearing out your welcome. Let's start off by Steph Curry says we need him. An emotional Steph Curry laments self-inflicting wounds following another Draymond Green ejection. It's his fourth of the season. During the team's 101-93 victory over the Magic, Green's ejection came less than 4 minutes into the game after he received 2 technical fouls for disputing separate foul calls, okay? The 34-year-old Green has already been suspended twice this year by the NBA. This season for striking Phoenix Suns center Yusuf Nurkic in the face and putting Timberwolves center Rudy Gobert in a rear chokehold. Green also received a suspension during last season playoffs after stomping on the chest of Kings big man Domantas Sabonis. During his last 12-game suspension, Green was required to meet certain league and team conditions before he returned to play. He had meetings with counselors, representatives of the NBA and the Warriors and the Players Association. So basically, you know, you got to get counseling. Steph Curry was visibly frustrated following Green's latest ejection, shaking his head and covering his face with his jersey. All I say is we need him, Curry told reporters in the locker room after the game. He knows that. We all know that. So whatever it takes for him to be on the floor and be available, that's what's got to happen, especially at this point in the year. All right, come back to me, Coy. This guy has just worn out his welcome. I mean, this guy is retarded, and he comes off as being very, very intelligent. And I know he is very, very intelligent. But you know, sometimes you meet these people and they just can't see any kind of fault in themselves. You come on, we've all met that person that doesn't take blame for anything. You know, everything that happened was somebody else's fault. So now Draymond is saying, hey, it's hard to go out and play these games, and the refs are picking on me, and they're looking for any little thing that I do so they can call a technical foul or eject me from the game. And they're just picking on me. Dude, there's a reason for that, okay? This bullying and this attitude and just not being in control of your emotions and your faculties, man, it's you know, we see this in athletics all the time where we have these athletes and they have this supreme talent, and because they're so talented, they really think that they can do, say, and get away with anything. But unfortunately, what a lot of them fail to realize is that they're African Americans, okay? And I don't care how talented you are, I don't care how good you are, you're still black. And they're putting up with you because you are that supreme talent, but as soon as that talent starts to decline a little bit, man, they've been sharpening an axe for you so big and juicy, you just can't even believe it. Think about T.O., Chad Ochocinco, guys like that. They're licking their chops waiting to get rid of this guy, Draymond Green, man. We have to pray for him, because there's something really, really emotionally and mentally wrong with him. This guy cannot control himself, and he won't take responsibility for anything. As a Warriors fan, it's time for this guy to go, man. This guy needs to be kicking the can down the road, and you don't care where he's going as long as he's leaving your vicinity, okay? And like Forrest Gump say, that's all I'm going to say about that. So that's Draymond. Let's move on to the next little NBA. Hey, listen, are the Milwaukee Bucks better with Doc Rivers? Think about that for a second. For my NBA fans out there, are the Milwaukee Bucks better with Doc Rivers? Let's bring that up, Coy. Let's jump into that. Why the coaching change hasn't moved the needle in Milwaukee? Listen, Adrian Griffin was 30-13 and in first place. Doc Rivers is now 15-13. Now, a markedly improved. Now, one of the reasons they got rid of Adrian Griffin, they said our defense was so bad. So there has been a markedly improved in their defense, but a lot less explosiveness on offense. It's a record of mediocrity, hiding a recent and impressive post-All-Star game surge, and a nagging sense that Doc Rivers' era in Milwaukee has not yet been the raging success the Bucks surely hoped for when they installed him mid-season. That's the perplexing takeaway after Rivers' first 25 games as the Bucks head coach. Now, the 25-game mark is important, one for NBA teams, as they evaluate exactly what they have, and who they are. Front offices and coaching staffs look to the first 20 to 25 games of the season to get a real sense of their team. Well, Doc Rivers-led Bucks simply happened unusually late in the season, compliments of the Bucks' decision in January to fire Adrian Griffin, despite his 30-13 record. It was not universally beloved decision, and it appears to be a gigantic error in judgment. The results so far are mixed and are open to interpretation. So here are the numbers. Okay, offensive rating, Doc's Bucks are 12th. Griffin's Bucks ratings was second in the NBA. The defensive ratings, Doc's Bucks are 14th, and Adrian Griffin Bucks were ranked 21st in the NBA. The net ratings overall is Doc's Bucks are now 11th, and Adrian Griffin's Bucks ranked 10th. So if you're looking at the numbers, they definitely made a mistake. Listen, Mark Twain said this: there are three kinds of lies. Number one, there are lies. Number two, there are damned lies. And number three, there are statistics. So the bottom line is Griffin was 30-13, and Doc is 15-11 with no NBA Finals in 14 years. You can see what you want to see with Doc. You can look at these numbers and say, Doc is surging and impressively improving since the All-Star break, reinforced by Middleton's return, primed to make a run we all thought possible when Dollar Dane first arrived in Wisconsin. But here's what Tom the Bomb sees. I see the same old story at the helm of a team that's not that much better than it was without him. Dame and Giannis still clearly are ill at ease on the floor together, all of it trending toward another postseason letdown with a track record as one of the sport's most disappointing postseason head coaches the NBA has produced. Bottom line is I don't see Milwaukee beating Boston anyway, and that's what you brought Doc in to get you past the Boston Celtics in the East, and I don't think it's going to happen. Hey, let's wrap up with our last sports story, do the baseball. Hey, can the Texas Rangers repeat? Real quick, here's 5 things that the Texas Rangers, let's get to the Texas Rangers, guys. Here's 5 things that the Rangers need to do to repeat. Number 1, the aces have to return to health. You got Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Tyler Murray. If he returns from Tommy John surgery, and they still have Nathan Eovaldi and John Gray and Andrew Heaney, but the bottom line is all of these guys are kind of old, okay? But that's what they need. Number 1, they need their aces to return to health. We're talking about the Texas Rangers now, guys. Their young outfielders need to excel. We don't need to talk about their veterans because their veterans are some of the best in the league. But they got some young studs. Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford are the number 3 and the number 4 prospects in all of baseball, and they're both 22 years old, and they're both big league ready. Number 3, their lineup needs to stay healthy. Last year, they were the healthiest team in the major leagues. Last year, the Texas Rangers had 7 players that played over 120 games. Healthy teams make the playoffs. It's just that simple. And then 4th is the Astros and the Mariners, who are in their division. They got a slip. They did it the hard way last year, but they need to secure a number 1 or a number 2 seed in the West. Basically, they need to win the West. They need to get past the Astros. And then last but not least, number 5 is they need some luck, man. Everybody has to be lucky, okay, especially in baseball with a season of 162 games. You got to be healthy. Being healthy is being lucky as well. Hey, let's close out our show as we do want to remember we have had a passing of a great, great actor, Mr. Lou Gossett Jr. And I like Lou Gossett because I thought he always represented our people in general, very, very well on the screen. Whether he was acting or not, he was a great representative of our people. And you can't help but notice, the movies, Officer and the Gentleman, Mayonnaise, Roots, lot of great movies of Lou Gossett Jr. Just had some great roles. He was a phenomenal actor behind the scenes, of course, in front of the camera, off stage, and he was just a great representation of people in general. So here at WBGR, we just want to acknowledge a great man, a great actor, Mr. Lou Gossett Jr., rest in peace. Job well done, a faithful servant. Great actor. I loved his movies and a lot of good movies. Hey, let's close out on an upbeat. Hey, I want to say congrats. Bring up Siju for me. I just want to say congratulations to a young man that I know that actually attends my church. His name is, can you bring up Siju? That's my boy. Siju Oladipo has been accepted at the University of Purdue to major in robotics and engineering. Congratulations, Siju. We are so proud of you. This is just a fantastic, phenomenal young man, to the point that Tom the Bomb has to take a minute to recognize him on the show. I am so proud of you. You're doing a fantastic job. I'm still trying to figure out if you're adopted or not, because I know your dad. That's terrible. But hey, let me just say this, the same love that I have for your dad, that's the same love that I have for you. So congratulations, Siju. I know you're going to do a fantastic job. This is the kind of stuff that we want to be pushing and talking about on the Tom the Bomb Show. Congratulations, Siju. Hey man, that's it. Hey, for a dynamic, in-depth analysis and highlights for the Washington football team and DC Sports and more, check out the Washington Sports Dance Thursdays at 2 p.m. on WBGR with my main man, Mr. Felix Bassi. Hey, man, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time here, but we sure do thank you for spending your time with us. Listen, may the gates of heaven open and pour an abundance of blessings down on you where there won't be room enough to contain it. Remember, if you want it, you got to confess it with your mouth and believe it in your heart that Jesus died on the cross and he rose on the third day, not a Thursday, just for you. That's what Resurrection Day is all about, man. That's what Resurrection Day is all about. Listen, man, do you know that the resurrection gave us the power over death? It gave us the power to rise, okay? So that's why it's so important. Remember, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. God bless you. We'll see you on the same bat time on the same bat station. You guys have a blessed week, and don't miss that game tonight. LSU and Iowa. It's gonna be good. Get your popcorn ready. Tom the Bomb is out. Have a good night. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you.
I'm about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. Whoa. Money and a 2 for the catch me. And if you wanna taste, you gon' have to pay a fee. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up.